Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to set up and use external axis in RhinoRobot. This is Olivier for Kinematic. In this video, I will show you how to add to your project a linear axis and a rotary axis. Let's start with a basic project in which you already have set up a tool. You can find a link to the tutorial on how to set up a tool in the upper right corner of this video. Let's go to the Name Seaplanes panel. As you can see, we already have an E1 and an E2 named seaplanes, but they have the default value, which is the Rhino World 0. Let's add the geometry of the linear axis. You can either import a block or copy and paste geometry from an already opened Rhino. Now we position it. And it is the same process as when adding a tool. You have to set up a block with a block command, then choose a base point. And name it RR_E1. Yes, replace the existing one. Now we have to set up the RRE1 name seaplane. So first, let's position the seaplane. You have to make sure that the y-axis of your seaplane is in the direction of the translation. Then save it as RRE1. Yes, replace it. Now let's go back to RhinoRobot, and in the Configuration tab under Axis Configuration, you can see that by default this axis is already checked linear. You can set up the limits of your axis in the Limits section of this tab. Your linear axis E1 is all set up. We can go to the Movements tab and use the E1 slider to see that the axis moves in real time. Let's go for a rotary axis E2. First, let's go back to the original seaplane so we can accurately position our RRE2 block. Paste your geometry. Make a block and name it. Replace. Now let's set the seaplane. This time, the z-axis of the seaplane must be the rotary axis of the axis, like so. Let's save it as RRE2. In the Configuration tab, under Axis Configuration, you can see that the E2 axis can only be rotary, whereas the E1 can be linear or rotary. You can use your external axis indexed with a set value that will be valid for the whole trajectory of the robot. Or you can also continuously align this axis with one of the target's axes by checking Align and selecting the two axis directions. The first one corresponds to the target's direction, and the second one is the external axis seaplane direction. Now let's go for an example of the linear axis, and then one for the rotary. I draw a curve near the robot, but partly out of reach. I select it, and RhinoRobot makes targets on it. Now I go to the Configuration tab. I check that the limits of my axis are all set up. Click on the Align checkbox. And back to the Movements tab. There you go. For a rotary axis, let's draw another curve on the axis. This time I want my x to be tangent to the curve. Then I check Align and Align to the Y. And it's done. Let me hide the original curve. Back to the Movements tab. Voila! Thank you very much for your attention. Don't hesitate to press the like button, ask questions, or make observations in the comments below. See you soon for another video.